I honestly feel like December is probably my worst reading month in 2024. Do we need every single details in this fantasy world? I mean, we got so many spies in this story. I don't wanna reread this series again. There are not too many people who have read this book. I just don't buy this kind of bullshit. Hi guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to my channel. What a good start of 2025. As you can see from the title or maybe from the thumbnail, I have to do my December wrap up and my January TBR together. The only reason is because of Christmas. Obviously, it is the time for a holiday and enjoy your time with your loved ones. So I ended up only finishing one book in 2 weeks, which is very bad. With only 3 books to wrap up in December 2024, I have to make some temporary changes to my reading plan for 2025. So I decided to do these 2 wrap up and the January TBR together to start this new year. Maybe we can begin with my reading statistics of December 2024. I can only manage to finish 3 books, which is so shameful to say. 2 fantasies and 1 romance. The total page count is 1,739, and this is nearly 700 pages less than November. The average rating of December is only 3 stars, and this again is worse than November by 0.75 stars, which I think is quite a massive decline. I honestly feel like December is probably my worst reading month in 2024. I would say that all these 3 books, when they are good, they can be really good, but when they are shite, they can be really shite. By the way, I hope you all will have a fantastic, brilliant new reading year. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel Dantasy so you can keep an eye on my reading progress. You can also share your January TBR down in the comment below. Which one you can't wait to start? For my December wrap up, maybe we can start with the best and then down to the worst. The first one is probably the most exciting one because I finally finished the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, meaning that I have completed the last book, Speaking Bones in December. I honestly have no idea where should I start with this review because it is such a long journey since the first book, and I need to avoid any possible spoilers just in case you guys are interested in this series as well. This book is about the future of Dara, where the locals like the Dandelion Court, who we have been following since the first book, fighting against the Luchu, which is a foreign race invaded Dara in the second book. We also got a storyline of a princess from this Dandelion Court who will travel across the sea to a foreign land to try to stop the Luchu invasion by preventing more coming to Dara. Like I said in my December TBR video, I look forward to see how the new cast of characters in the 3rd book gonna join the main one, and I think the 4th book did deliver this promise, and I would say they are quite vital. In this book, I would say there are 2 main confrontations. The first one is about the Dandelion Court fighting the Luchu race. Here we are like in the last couple of books, Ken Liu would introduce different kind of silk pun technology, invention that is based on Asian culture and how this can be explained by modern scientific properties and how this technology can be applied in the war. This battle, I would say, is epic. It is like the war by the end of the 2nd book. 2 sides have to pull out whatever they can within their limited resources, and this whole war, I would say, is quite immersive. You would be so eager to find out which side gonna win or what they will lose. And then the second confrontation, I would say, is a bit on a smaller scale. It is about a secret invasion to the palace. So everything has to be quite sneaky and discreet. This, of course, I wouldn't say is epic, but because we are so familiar with this cast of characters, It is still quite engaging, and we honestly would get so impatient to find out would this mission be successful or not. So I would say Ken Liu can keep up with his level of writing in this kind of battles and wars. And then talking about the character development, looking across all 4 books, I think the most well-written, at the same time the most complex character is Empress Jia. Starting from the last book, she got a bit mysterious, she got a task she gonna fulfill, and she would have some secret agenda going on. We will see her betraying everyone she loves and manipulating the whole situation. She acts like a villain but in the Dandanian court. Literally like all the characters in the story, we will be questioning why she is doing something so brutal, so bloody, and then at the same time prevent us from doing something. It is like we don't know what her endgame, what her grand plan gonna be. But after finishing the 4th book, we finally got an answer. To be honest, I quite like this kind of character. Nothing is absolutely right or absolutely wrong. They balance all the stakes in their mind and finally make their own decision in the story. I would say all the character developments are quite similar. What they are doing would be quite consistent with their personality traits in a sense. But Empress Jia is just like on another level, and she got her own redemption story. My only very little complaint here is about that particular chapter, where every piece about Empress Jia is coming together. Personally, I would like to take that chapter out because we kind of know what is going on from now on. I think it would be better for us, the reader, to rethink what Empress Jia has gone through since her childhood, and then we write her own story, if you know what I mean. But if you ask me, looking at the 4th book or the whole series in general, would it be a 5-star read? I would say it is nearly there. Without a doubt, Ken Liu is such a strong storyteller, and he is so good at crafting a brand new fantasy world. The only thing I did struggle, or most people would, is the pacing of this whole series. I understand that Ken Liu wanna bring the most to his own fantasy world, so from time to time there would be quite a lot of explanation of details. But this does not only happen in the 4th book, but the whole series in general. Like all the grand battles in this series, they are usually quite long already, and it will be divided into different parts. We will be so desperate because we are so invested in them to see how they are doing. But then we will be having a flashback about how this particular invention is invented. I mean, it is fine to have this kind of backstories. Maybe some people would be curious about how you come up with this idea. But, the length of this backstory is nearly the same as the epic battles. We would literally have a whole chapter of lecture about science and engineering, which I do doubt. Do we need every single details in this fantasy world? And then in these backstories, I wouldn't say they contribute too much to things like character development or the plot in general. They are just like the background information about this particular invention. So it is like we have been waiting for so long already. Finally, it is the time for this final confrontation. We will be so desperate to see how our characters gonna fight, gonna turn the tide, gonna do their utmost. But sorry, at this point, Ken Liu need to explain this particular gadget, how they come up with it, what sort of engineering work is involved behind. So honestly, it was like testing my patience because I was so desperate for the final outcome, and at some points I did want to check online how our characters gonna do in these battles because I've been waiting for so long. At last, I gave this 4th book 4-star, and I would say this series is not for everyone. Maybe later I will do a separate video for the review of the Dandanian Dynasty in general, so stay tuned to that. I know I say so much about the Speaking Bones, but because I was so invested in it, so sorry for the rest of the books on this list, you won't get this screen time. The next book I finished in December is a slight disappointment. It is The Blood-Dim Tide by Stephen Ian, the second book of the Nightingale and the Falcon trilogy. It is an Asian-inspired historical fantasy that is based on the Mongolian invasion to the Middle East in the 30th century. In this war, the Mongolian Khan is facing a two-side war. Kafon is a Persian general working for this Mongolian Khan, but secretly he is a spy. But the Mongolian Khan is so paranoid about the safety, about the future of the Mongolian, so Kafon's identity as a spy is in crisis. And then the Mongolian Khan's son Temujin has developed a secret magical power. He was recruited by people like him and then he was trained under them. Later, he would discover the secrets of these powerful people. At last, a Mongolian princess called Kokojin, who is in exile because she was also a spy and the empress has discovered it. I mean, we got so many spies in this story. What I would say about this book is that it feels so short. This book is not long already, it only got 400 pages and divided by the storylines I have just mentioned. Let alone there is a group of side characters who is also spies. Sometimes I do want to spend some more time with these characters because I think the character development is a bit rushed or maybe quite descriptive. I even feel like you can cut the second book into half and then put the first half back to the first book and then the rest to the third book, basically turning it into a duology. If not, I feel like we could have some more events taking place in the second book to make the character development more persuasive in a sense. Overall, it is still a good book. I enjoy the political development. I also enjoy the expansion of the nature of this world. But I just want a little bit more, just a little bit more for every character. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. And the last book of December, honestly, I have just DNF'd it because I don't want to give a about it anymore, and it is the Break Up Pact by Emma Lord. If you can't tell by the title of this book, it is a romance, and on paper, it sounds like something that I would enjoy. It is about June and Levi, who have recently both become single and decided to go into a fake relationship so that they can both benefit from it. June wants to save her tea house, her business, which is so important to her because it is the legacy of her sister. And Levi wants to repair his relationship with his girlfriend. Don't ask me how, but going into a fake relationship obviously can improve your relationship in this book. I would say this book also suffered the same problem as The Blood-Dim Tide, which is like everything just happens so quickly or so conveniently written. Let's say the tea house is so important to June, but we don't really spend much time in this tea house. Or like, what is happening in this world has nothing to do with the tea house, and there is no significant event taking place there. Then June and her sister, and then Levi, the one going to this fake relationship, they were friends before, but I just wish that there could be some past events that could potentially link up this relationship better because I don't feel like they were friends before in a sense. I would say the majority of the plot is quite descriptive. It is like the author told us something like this and we take it for granted. Then coming to the most important part, the romantic encounter. I would say I couldn't feel the spark in this relationship. It is a second chance story. So again, it is so conveniently written about the love of Levi. It is like, I have been loving you since like we were young, but I didn't tell you. Now I would just like cherish this chance and I would do whatever I can to get you to be my girlfriend, something like that. I just don't buy this kind of bullshit. There are also some discussion about the insecurities of June and how she felt about her dead sister. But again, I couldn't really get into this plot. I can't really connect to June, maybe because we are not too familiar with her, even though maybe we are 70% into the story. There is also a subplot about June helping her brother to run a wedding. so June and Nephi would do things together. But again and again, I couldn't click with these two characters. Maybe there are not too much carving, you know what I mean, about these two characters, so we don't really give a shit about them. I ended up DNF this book maybe 70% into it, and I gave this one 2 stars. Finally, after talking about all the books I have finished in December 2024, we can now move on to my very first TBR of 2025. Maybe we can start with the books I have never mentioned before. Later, you will know why I say it. The first one I have is The Winter's House by Robert Jordan, the 9th book of the Wheel of Time series. I think it is the very first time I talk about this series on this channel. So in case you don't know, it is a very popular epic fantasy series that got 15 books in total. And in short, it is about the good old battle between the good and the evils. The key to this battle is a character called Rand, who is the dragon reborn in this story. And then we will follow a huge cast of characters, let's say Matt, Perrin, Nynaeve, Egwene, I'm not sure is how you say Egwene, who got their own storyline going on. The story did get a bit more complicated when we dive deeper into the series, especially when our characters start to learn their role in this world. I started this series in 2023 January, and honestly it was a reread, and for some reasons I don't know why I stopped at book 8, which is Path of Daggers. Now I think it is the time to finish this series off. I don't want to wait anymore. I mean, I still kind of remember what had happened, and honestly, I don't want to reread this series again. So let's get going. The second book I have is a subscription book, and it is also the very first book I received from Inkstone, and it is Blood of the Old King by Song Il Kim, translated by Anton He, and it is also the first book of the Bleeding Empire series. As you can tell, the author is a Korean, and this one is like a translated fantasy. In this book, we're gonna follow 3 strangers in an empire which used the power of the dead wizard to conquer, but the peace brought by it is actually a lie. In here, we're gonna follow a sword woman called Lauren, who hold a sword made by Dragon Fang. And then a friend of King was murdered. He swore to find out who is responsible. And at last, we have Arian, a sorcerer who wants to live her own life. They all have something to chase after that may bring the empire toppling down. Just by looking at the synopsis, I honestly have no idea how these 3 characters gonna come together, and I think the only way to find out is to start this book as soon as possible. I also checked this one out on Goodreads, and the rating itself is not that bad. But there are not too many people who have read this book. So I want to see if this one gonna be a super underrated fantasy book. The last 2 books on my January TBR, you may have seen me talking about them before, so I will mention them very briefly. If you have watched me long enough, you will know which books I am talking about. The first one I have is The Stone of Farewell by Ted Williams, the second book of the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series. I originally put this one on my December TBR, but we all know what happened. I was just too busy and I honestly didn't have time for it, so this one has pushed to my January TBR. This is honestly such a shame because I was doing so well to keep up with all these subscription books. By the way, I got this one from the Broken Binding Fantasy subscription. This also means that, okay, it may be a bit complicated, but I'll try my best to explain. From now on, if I don't deliberately catch up with the latest installment of the Broken Binding Fantasy subscription, or if they have picked up a series that I have actually completed, all the books that I will receive from them will need to wait at least 2 months to be featured on my TBR. Which is like, I am so disappointed in myself. Imagine seeing all these beautiful books and you can't read them yet. Not good. The last one I have is Any Book of Mistborn Era 2 by Brandon Sanderson. At this stage, I know I sound like a broken record, but I know Wind and Truth is out now. But in case there is any reference to the Cosmere, I want to catch up with every book in the Cosmere first before jumping to this epic conclusion of an era. Currently, I am only missing out the Mistborn Era 2 and I am only one book in, meaning that I still have to finish 3 books before jumping into the Wind and Truth. Luckily, the whole Mistborn Era 2 is not too long, so hopefully I can start Wind and Truth real soon. I just missed out the algorithm really badly. So here are all the books I finished in December 2024 and all the books I want to read in January 2025. I hope you all will have a fantastic new reading year too. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel so you won't miss anything from me. I will see you all real soon. Goodbye.